Welcome to A Spot of Story with Danielle Grandinetti. Cozy up with your favorite beverage as we chat about sweet romance, thrilling suspense, and fascinating history. Perhaps you'll find your next read in one of these stories. On this episode of A Spot of Story, I am chatting with Jessie Mattis about her book, A Mess of Dreams. Jessie Mattis crafts 20th century inspirational fiction inspired by family history, where she hopes to breathe new life into unique bits of America's past. Her Middle Fork series, scheduled to begin releasing in July 2026, showcases character-centered homefront stories spanning the 1940s through 70s. Each novel is filled with family, friends, romance, and adventure, always wrapped in God's power and grace. Jessie is an award-winning author, Jesus-loving wife, and homeschooling mom of 3 teenagers. Road trips, laughter, and space heaters are some of her favorite things. And any day she doesn't have to put on shoes is a good day. Jessie lives in Indiana with her incredible family and Guster, the Labradoodle, who naps in the most inconvenient places. Jessie, welcome.
Thank you so much.
It's wonderful to have you. And A Mess of Dreams is published by Ashbury Lane, which is also my publisher. So we're publishing sisters. So I'm extra excited to have you on the podcast today.
Yes, I love that part. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So this podcast unites us over a love of story. So I'd love to begin with a question about what you're currently reading.
What am I currently reading? So I actually am not in the middle of anything at the moment. I just finished up reading The Brunswick by Callie Murray, which is a new release by Revell, and it was really good. I really liked it.
Wonderful. I love it. When I ask that question, I catch an author right between reads, and it's like, wait.
Yeah, I have a pile of other things to start, but I'm not in a good position to start reading a new book, because when I start reading a book, I'm all in until I'm done. And then it's hard to live life.
I have a feeling there are several readers who can relate. All right, turning to A Mess of Dreams, which is the first in the Middle Fork series. What does a day in the life of your characters look like?
Oh, that's a good question. My main character is Lorraine Stewart, and she's 17 years old, and she lives in Potomac, Illinois, which is a rural farming community, very small town. She lives on a farm outside of town. So I think a normal day in her life would look like waking up early before school to help with chores. It's 1943 at that point. So lots of chores to help with on the farm. And then she heads to school and comes back, does some more chores, hopefully hangs out with her best friend Ruby, who lives a mile down the road. And they probably have some sort of an adventure, or she'll go on a horseback ride because she loves doing that too. So she has a standard high schooler's life at this point, even though World War II is going on across the sea. And so there's a lot going on in town around her, but she's just trying to live her normal life.
Love that. It's such a 17-year-old's perspective. You're still enjoying childhood, and yet you're also aware that there's bigger things happening.
Yes. So throughout the story, those things become bigger and bigger in her world. So it's a fun journey.
Yes. So what was your favorite scene to write in this story, and why?
Oh, goodness. That's a fun question. Oh, it's hard to whittle it down. One of the first scenes is when she meets Amos Alexander, and that happens in chapter 1. And it was a very fun scene for me to write because it happens at a town-wide cakewalk, which half of the people listening probably have never heard of, but cakewalks were actually a normal part of my childhood growing up. Our town would have one every year, and it was a fun time for the community to come together. So in the story, that's where they meet. And it was really fun for me because I was able to write while I was picturing things that had actually happened in my life while I was growing up, and tried to make it cute and fun to get things rolling. But there was another scene that's one of my favorites that happens quite a bit later in the book. It's a lot more serious. And I just remember writing that scene and praying through it and tearing up and hoping that was a good sign that I was tearing up. I don't know. But so there is one scene that has a lot of emotion that was pretty fun to write.
Ah, I love that. Makes you want to get to that scene so you can read it yourself. What was some unique research that was required to write this story?
This is set in rural Illinois during World War II, and it was really fun for me to dive in and learn about the presence of prisoners of war and their role on the home front during the war. There was a few camp set up not too far from my hometown, and this story is inspired by some true events. It's not real people or real situations, but I was inspired by a story of my great grandma having taken chocolate cake and lemonade out to the fields to give the German POWs a little break and a little treat while they were working hard in the hot sun picking tomatoes for the local canning factory. And so you can only imagine, right? These are German prisoners. Most people would probably be scared of them or just angry with them or whatever, but apparently she saw their humanity, she saw their toil in the hot sun and just took them some refreshments. And so that played a huge part in getting the wheels turning. So then I dug into the research and read all about it and watched some YouTube videos and just learned as much as I could about that. And because I don't know about you, but I just that much or anything really about that element of the war on the home front. So pretty fascinating.
I feel like a lot of stories take place at the front. So to learn more about the home front and the everyday lives that were happening here, like I love that perspective.
Yeah, it's so interesting because not only were the prisoners housed in different camps across America, but they were hired out as laborers because so many of our guys were overseas fighting that farmers in particular had real shortages and wouldn't have been able to maintain their farms if they weren't able to hire these. That was a fascinating element to me. And so that is what happens in the story. Lorraine's family ends up hiring some POWs and they're around each other a lot. And there's some interesting things that come about because of it.
Yes, I can imagine. So, what is one bit of research that didn't make it into the story that you wish you could have included?
Oh, that's interesting. I can't think of anything right off. So it's interesting to write historical fiction, and yet it's this time and place is not really that far removed, right? So it's the 40s. My grandpa is still with us. He's 99, and it's just been a normal part of my life to some degree hearing about those times. So while there was a lot of research that I did trying to make sure that the time and the place came through in the story really well, I think I just mostly would research as I came across an idea or a topic, and then I would dive in and use what I found. There's a different, in one of my other books farther down in the series, it's centered around the Vietnam War. And for that one, my approach to research was very different. I just immersed myself in it and learned basically everything I could and then whittled it down. But this one I researched as I went, and it's very character centered. So the historical elements are just a little more in the background for this one.
I love hearing everybody has a different process. And like you said, each book has a different process. Why I like asking that question. You hinted at it already, but what was the inspiration behind this story?
Yes. So my grandparents grew up in Potomac, Illinois. I grew up there too. That's where my dad's family is from. And that's where I set the story. What's interesting is originally the first three books of this upcoming 4-book series, the first three were just one book with 3 parts. And then I had someone, an agent, who read it and suggested I expand them into 3 separate books. And I did. And I'm so grateful for that advice. But that just meant that I had to fictionalize what I had a little bit more because originally it was a lot more based off of my grandparents' lives in certain ways. But then once I expanded it, book 1 actually became the one that had the least true things in it. So A Mess of Dreams, while it is inspired by my grandparents, it is not their story. So books 2 and 3 deal with topics that they dealt with and lived through and wrestled through. But this one, I just let my imagination take it away. What would have happened before they got married? Because the series is the two main characters and how they grow in their relationship through the years and as they get older and everything. But so this one I had to go, okay, what might have happened before they met? What could have been an interesting thing that would have happened in that year in Illinois? And then I just rolled with it. I found out that little bit that I mentioned about my great grandma and the pews working across the street. And I thought that was just fascinating. So I ran with it.
I love that. And it's fun knowing, okay, so book one comes out, but now everyone needs to bookmark your author page so that they can come back and grab the next ones to continue following their story.
Yeah, that would be great. I would love that. Yes, my hope is that people will really connect with Lorene. As a writer, I've been working on this series for lots of years now, and Lorene has just become one of my dearest friends. You're an author, so you know how that goes. And I just want other people to know her the way I know her, which sounds a little crazy when you're not a writer, probably. But
as a reader, I think we get to know those characters too. So hopefully she becomes one of those favorite characters for readers. Which brings me to one of our last questions, and that is, what encouragement do you hope readers will take away from your story?
I have always approached writing as a ministry, and I don't want that to bring red flags up for people. Oh, it's going to be preachy, because that is not the point. Obviously, I want it to be just a fun, entertaining escape for people to, dive into. But there is a lot of faith woven in to the whole story, because that's just part of my world. That's how I live life. It's always part of the conversation and part of the process. And so that's how it is for Lorene too. And so I really hope that readers can just see the way she wrestles through things and comes out on the other side of things and can feel encouraged and inspired by her journey, that God is good even through trauma and trials and difficulties, because Lorene has a lot to overcome. She's 17, but she's been through some things already and has to go through some other things in this story. So she's got guilt and trust issues and things like that to wrestle through. And so I just hope that readers can see themselves in Lorene and see God's goodness at the end of the book.
That's beautiful. I love that. I love when we can see ourselves in characters and can walk with them, and it almost helps our healing journey as a character experiences theirs.
Yes, I think fiction can be really powerful in that way. So that's my prayer for this. I know that I've encountered that in other books, and it would be neat to be able to contribute that to the world too.
Yes, I love that. Jessie, thank you so much for joining me today. Since we've talked about not just one book, but the series as well, where can readers find you and your book online?
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Danielle. This has been really fun. And A Mess of Dreams is available on Amazon or the Whitefire Publishing, Ashbury Lane Publishing website. You can also go to jessiemattis.com and find more about it there. And if you want to join the newsletter to find out more about the next releases, that would be awesome too. But happy to share with you today.
Wonderful. I really appreciate it, Jessie. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to A Spot of Story with Danielle Grandinetti. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Let us know by leaving a comment below, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Discover more information about today's book by visiting A Spot of Story online at daniellegrandinetti.com/podcast. Happy reading!